I'm wondering if there are any statistics in terms of the incidences of both of these cases during foreign deployment as opposed to, during times of peace when, for the most time, the military is based in the United States. And also, to follow up on that, given, as you keep saying, that the wars are winding down and so many of these troops are going to be coming home, if this is an issue that really hasn't been prevalent before, do you think that the return of the troops will help bring it to the forefront and will make this a discussion that simply wasn't the case in Vietnam and Korea and World War II because women weren't as big a part of the military back then?
Right.
Thank you.
To answer the second part first, I mean, I very much think that as these wars wind down and these veterans come home, that we're going to be forced to talk more about these issues and to acknowledge these issues because they're very much going to be in our faces. I mean, this is going to, really the largest generation of veterans since Vietnam. So veterans are going to be very much a part of, civilian society in a way that in a very present, a very visible way, a very visceral way, in a way that they haven't been in a while. Our generation hasn't been kind of confronted with those questions so much. So I very much think that it's going to be forcing the issue. I mean, you can even see with the homeless statistics, for example. I mean, I think it will change things when it's a female veteran with a child on the street, unfortunately. I think that will change the dialogue and prompt dialogue around these issues because that's not something we've been confronted with really in a while. And in terms of the prevalence of these issues at home or during deployment, military sexual assault, PTSD, but these things can occur whether you're on the home base or whether you're deployed. I mean, there are cases of PTSD that still occur for people who have home deployments. I mean, combat isn't required necessarily for you to have PTSD, although obviously that's an exacerbating situation that would contribute to it. But for example, drone pilots, we call them pilots, but they're guiding unmanned vehicles thousands of miles away across the world. There's been early research to indicate that they suffer from PTSD. They're not physically in combat, but they're making these decisions, they're still making life or death decisions under incredible amounts of stress. So these problems certainly exist, whether at home or deployed. That's even more true for military sexual assault. It occurs on home bases in the United States. It occurs off base in the United States with members of the military, which is still considered military sexual assault. There are statistics early research to kind of indicate that it's very prevalent while deployed, particularly in Iraq and Afghanistan. In terms of why, it's not something that's really been pinned down yet. But there was a point in 2012, I think, in which Afghanistan more recently, more in the past than that, but which Afghanistan overtook Iraq in terms of the number of sexual assaults that there had been. But it's thought to be more prevalent in these most recent wars than in wars prior, but it's difficult to compare because it's so underreported. And like I said, we didn't even have names for some of these things. And for example, Vietnam veterans, World War II veterans, the ones that are left, often didn't even have a name to put to what they were going through. The PTSD didn't exist, or it existed, but it didn't have a name. It wasn't identified when they went to war and when they came home again. And there's some of the most difficult population to reach for the VA and for the healthcare system.